It was a cold winter morning in the small town of Crestville. The streets were covered in a thick blanket of snow, and the townspeople were bundled up in their warmest coats and scarves as they went about their daily routines. But little did they know that this seemingly ordinary day would mark the beginning of a gripping mystery that would send shockwaves through their close-knit community. At the heart of the mystery was Mark Thompson, a respected accountant known for his meticulous attention to detail and unwavering integrity. Mark had always been a reliable and trustworthy figure in Crestville, handling the finances of numerous businesses and individuals with precision. His clients admired him for his professionalism, and his colleagues held him in high regard. But on that fateful morning, Mark failed to show up at his office. His assistant, Sarah Collins, grew increasingly worried as the hours ticked by with no sign of her boss. Mark was never late, and his absence was completely out of character. Sarah decided to pay a visit to Mark's house, hoping to find some answers. As Sarah approached the door of Mark's cozy cottage, she couldn't help but notice that something was amiss. The front door was slightly ajar, and the usually well-maintained garden looked neglected. A wave of unease washed over her, and she hesitantly pushed the door open. Inside, the house was in disarray. Papers were strewn across the floor. Furniture was overturned, and drawers had been pulled out and left empty. It was clear that someone had ransacked the place in search of something. Sarah's heart raced as she realized the severity of the situation. Frantically, she dialed the local police station and reported Mark's disappearance. Detective Emma Stevens, an experienced investigator known for her sharp instincts, was assigned to the case. She arrived at the scene, her keen eyes taking in the chaos that lay before her. As she surveyed the house, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than a simple burglary. Detective Stevens immediately set about gathering evidence from the crime scene. She carefully examined the overturned furniture, looking for any hidden compartments or secret hiding places that could hold vital clues. She found a small, battered notebook tucked under a sofa cushion. The pages were filled with numbers, financial calculations, and what appeared to be coded messages. The detective's curiosity deepened as she deciphered the coded messages. They seemed to be references to various bank accounts, transactions, and investments. It became clear to her that Mark was involved in something far more complex than his straightforward accounting work. But what could it be? Meanwhile, Sarah, driven by her concern for Mark's well-being, decided to conduct her own investigation. She remembered Mark mentioning a client, Richard Crawford, who had been acting strangely recently. Richard was a wealthy businessman with a reputation for shady dealings. Sarah suspected that Mark's disappearance might be connected to his dealings with Richard. She reached out to Richard, pretending to be concerned about Mark's absence. Richard's response only fueled her suspicions. He seemed nervous and evasive, claiming that he hadn't seen Mark in weeks and had no idea about his whereabouts. Sarah knew Richard was hiding something, and she was determined to find out what it was. As Detective Stevens dug deeper into Mark's financial records, she discovered a web of complex transactions and offshore accounts. It appeared that Mark had been involved in money laundering and embezzlement schemes, funneling large sums of money through various channels. The more she uncovered, the more she realized that Mark's seemingly pristine reputation was nothing more than a facade. Meanwhile, Sarah continued her investigation, secretly following Richard Crawford's every move. She tracked him to a dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of town. Peering through a crack in the door, she saw Richard engaged in a heated conversation with a mysterious man in a dark suit. Their words were muffled, but Sarah's intuition told her that this meeting held the key to Mark's disappearance. With her heart pounding, Sarah retreated from the warehouse and hurriedly relayed her findings to Detective Stevens. The detective immediately recognized the significance of Sarah's discovery. It seemed that Mark's involvement with Richard had led him into a dangerous world of crime and corruption. Armed with the knowledge they had gathered, Detective Stevens and Sarah devised a plan to confront Richard and bring him to justice. They presented their evidence to the local prosecutor, who swiftly issued a warrant for Richard's arrest. The stage was set for a dramatic showdown. On the day of the arrest, Detective Stevens and a team of officers surrounded Richard's mansion. As they entered the lavish estate, they found Richard standing in his study, a look of desperation in his eyes. Realizing that the game was up, he confessed to his involvement in the criminal activities that had ensnared Mark. According to Richard's confession, Mark had stumbled upon Richard's illicit activities during an audit of his accounts. Fearing exposure, Richard had orchestrated Mark's abduction, hoping to force him into silence. He had employed the services of the mysterious man in the dark suit, who had ties to a notorious criminal syndicate. With Richard's confession, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Mark's meticulous accounting skills had inadvertently led him into a world of danger, and his disappearance was a direct result of his unwavering commitment to the truth. His trusted reputation had made him a target, and only through the determination of Sarah and Detective Stevens was the truth finally revealed. As Crestville breathed a collective sigh of relief, the community hailed Sarah and Detective Stevens as heroes. The case of the missing accountant had captivated the town, and the revelation of corruption at its core served as a wake-up call for the residents. Mark Thompson's legacy would forever be a reminder that even the most ordinary among them could be entangled in a web of secrets and deception. And so, the mysterious disappearance of the accountant had come to an end, but the impact it had on Crestville would be felt for years to come. The town would forever remember the name Mark Thompson, the accountant who had unwittingly unveiled a world of corruption, and the brave individuals who had fought to expose the truth.